Hey everyone, welcome back to the movie studio. Welcome back to the Undead Talk podcast. We are back today to kick off season 5. We're going to be talking about episodes 1 through 4 today, and my dad is here to join me.
Hey everybody.
So yeah, we've taken a little hiatus, and we're back, and we're still going to be doing every other week, but instead of having a set 3 episodes, we're just going to cover what we've watched with that time. So it could be 2 episodes, it could be 3, it could be 4, but it's better for us to do it that way than to have just a set number of episodes each week, because we might not get to that.
Yeah, I mean, life is kind of crazy, and with work schedules, we're not getting to we're just not getting to watch it like we used to. Mm-hmm. And we miss it, but it's easier just doing it this way.
Yeah, and we have every other Mondays as a time to record, so we're just going to go with that.
Yep.
So yeah, let's just start off. Season 5, episode 1 is called No Sanctuary. And this episode was a crazy start to season 5. Like, I was blown away by how much happened in this premiere. And it almost felt like this should have been the season 4 finale, just with how much happened in it and everything. But what did you think overall of the premiere?
You know, I agree. I thought it had the big fight scene and everything that should have been at the finale of season 4. But you know, the writers are starting us off with some heavy stuff in season 5. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, so we had flashbacks in this episode to kind of begin and then end it is with Gareth, Alex, and Mary, and they're like being held as hostages in Terminus, and they're pretty much like vowing to escape. And then I think the ending was them seeing like someone get raped or something. But like it goes to show you that these people who are now the bad guys in Terminus were once the hostages, and you can tell how corrupt this whole thing is. So I would assume that Mary is like the mother. I would assume, and I'm not even just saying that because Mother Mary, but it kind of gave off that impression that she's the mom of these 2 kids.
Yeah, definitely.
So we had that flashback, and then we cut to, and I guess it was kind of like a cool sequence from them just cutting straight away to now in present day with they have their own hostages.
Yeah, I think there's a lot there when you think about it. You know, here you have some good people, and they become, you know, the bad people, so to speak, if you want to use that language. But, you know, we've been talking about this theme of dehumanization, becoming like a monster, becoming like a zombie. And here you actually see that of some people wanting to escape, the good people wanting to escape, and they actually turn into, you know, cannibals. They could turn into a monster, less than human. And that's the story of this entire show is, can this group of people in this apocalypse stay human? Or will they become monsters, one way or the other?
Yeah, for sure. So Rick, Daryl, Glenn, and Bob are taken as hostages, and then we get this disgusting sequence where they literally just slice their throats open. Like, and that was pretty disturbing to watch.
That's heavy.
Yeah. And one of them was actually Sam, who was the guy that Rick and Carol encountered last season.
Right.
But you would have to like look that up to.
And I didn't see that. I didn't see that.
Well, so I think so much has happened. Like even the viewers watching it, then they wouldn't have just known right off the bat that it was that guy. But that was like an interesting, I guess, trying to like close off that little thing.
Right.
Not much significance, but you can tell the writers are like doing a good job.
Well, and there could have been a deleted scene that brought some context there, and they had to cut. So
yeah, for sure. And it was kind of funny how like Glenn almost got like killed like 2 different times. And then they just stopped.
Was somewhat comical.
Yeah, like I think they just once would have been more realistic, but twice, like there's no way. Because like it was literally like less than a second away and he would have been dead. But it was just stopped both times. But you know, it's what's the expression, like main character protection, or I know there's a phrase for that, but or plot armor. It's plot armor. He has plot armor because he's a main character, or at least at this point, you know. Like, so they're not going to like kill him off right away at the beginning of episode 1, but we'll see. We'll see. And then Carol, Tyrese, and Judith, they're in the woods, and they come across a cabin. There's a guy named Martin there, and he's working for Terminus because he's on the radio talking to like Gareth or whatever. So Carol realizes that their group is being kept hostage, so she goes to Terminus to try to free them, and Tyrese stays with Judith and Martin. and then we have Carol going, and from outside the fences, she creates this explosion that pretty much just kills a bunch of walkers. That was pretty crazy. Like, that explosion with all the walkers going up in the air, and then the walkers on fire, too. Like, this episode probably had a decent budget.
Yeah,
like,
they're definitely expanding the budget.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder if it's actually the same budget, but they just went ahead and used it all for this episode, or if we have a bigger budget this season. This is the high, like, the following episodes probably didn't have as big of a budget, though, than this one. They used, I think, a lot of their money on this premiere. And then she camouflages herself by using, like, the walker stuff, like, to go into Terminus. And the distraction of the explosion allows Rick, Daryl, Glenn, and Bob to escape from captivity, and they're able to kill a lot of their captors. Now, not Gareth at this point. He's off elsewhere. And then Carol comes in, and she fights Mary, and she shoots her in the leg and leaves her to be overwhelmed by walkers. Now, I gotta admit, Carol was pretty badass in this episode. Like, I think a lot of the stuff from last season, we're seeing, like, a different side of her, and sure, it's still kind of, like, ruthless and all of that, but I think we're able to, like, appreciate her more because she did save them. If she didn't create that explosion, they probably would have died. You know, so I think my respect for her went up a lot in this episode. I don't know what you think.
Well, I think they've done a great job of showing the many sides of Carol. And for me, I watch that and see that she's an incredibly complex character. Like everyone, you know, we like to think black and white in the way that characters are written, but the writers here are doing an amazing job of kind of letting us see the nuances, and I think that's pretty cool. So she was doing some pretty crazy stuff last season. Here she's the savior. So
yeah.
Pretty wild.
Character development, for sure.
Well, and again, we don't know if it's character development, like she's now a hero, or if she's still the same kind of mixed person with good and evil within her, you know.
Well, I think last season she was doing stuff for, like, reasons that just didn't make much sense. And I think from what we've seen from this premiere, she's doing stuff for the right reasons.
Yeah, I agree.
So I do think there's a change there.
And I hope it stays.
Now, whether we're going to go back or not, that's a different story that I'm not sure about. But back in the cabin, Martin tries to kill Judith, like smother her, and then Tyrese catches him. At first, he, like, leaves the cabin, like, because Martin, like, forces him to, and for a second, I'm like, what the heck, Tyrese? Just, like, letting him be in there with a little kid. That was a stupid choice. But then, thankfully, Tyrese, like, comes in and just beats him unconscious. And that was a crazy moment for Tyrese. That's the most angry we've seen him.
Again, here's a baby, helpless, human. I mean, perfect human in the sense of the baby, Judith, hasn't been corrupted by stuff. And the hope is that no matter who the captor is, they would never kill a baby. Right? You'd never kill a baby. And so in Tyrese's mind, I would imagine that he's like, this guy won't do that. He might kill me, might kill Carol, but he wouldn't kill the baby. Well, that's just not the case. That's how far this world and everything about it is kind of, you know, again, we keep using the word dehumanize, but this guy has become a monster. He's become a zombie who has not turned yet. And so it's definitely heavy to watch because I did not like the baby being smothered.
No, that was very uncomfortable to see. So I think it was pretty satisfying to see, like, a character, you know, Tyrese has been a pretty non-violent character. In a way, it was kind of satisfying to see him just unleash, just showing how the extreme lengths he will go to protect Judith, make sure that Rick can reunite with her.
Yeah, I think in these situations, we've seen it in not just television shows, of course, but we see it in real life, how people in very stressful situations can do something incredibly heroic. I think Tyrese realized the situation and his emotions and his body took over. It's probably afterwards that he realized he went way too far, but in the moment, he probably didn't at all.
Well, no. I don't even think he went too far, to be honest, because it's later revealed that he didn't kill him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he was part of the group with Bob
That's
later
right,
on.
I forgot that.
So, like, So that was interesting that he didn't kill him after all. So no, I don't think he went
Kind
too
of sticks
far.
with that
Yeah.
you know, his mentality of
Yeah.
not kill humans. I guess you could continue with that theme.
Yeah. And then Carol reunites with the group, and then we get the Rick, Carl, and Judith reunion. We get the Tyrese and Sasha reunion, and that was all really
It kind of
sweet.
feels really good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's like a feel good moment. And then it ends with all of them like leaving Terminus behind, and then Rick puts like no sanctuary, like he crosses out like sanctuary for all and puts no sanctuary. That was a nice touch, like on the sign. And then in a post-credit scene, we see Morgan, and he's following the trails to Terminus.
Yep.
That was a nice way to leave
Nice
it off.
little add-on, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So overall, I really like this episode. What were some themes?
Well, I mean, I guess I really just want to talk about the real big stuff here, in the sense of the title of the episode is No Sanctuary.
And
Again,
that's-
you talked about how Rick did that, but really, and again, you know, throughout this whole series is about there is no safe space. Every time they think they find some place to call home, there is no home. And the prison was a great example of this, and Woodbury was this picturesque, you know, peaceful place, but it wasn't. And you know, here again, we there is no home. There's no Terminus, which was supposed to be a safe haven for everybody, just wasn't. And then the other idea, which I think is important, is the forgiveness element that we see with Rick and Carol. Rick embraces Carol and invites her back into the group after that heroism that she did. So anyway, those are some pretty cool themes.
Yeah, totally agree. I would give this episode a 10 out of 10. I think it was a perfect episode.
Yeah, I agree. It was great.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to episode 2 called Strangers. Basically, we have the group in the woods. They're all together. And I was like surprised. Like, wait, they have a huge group now. Like, it's come a long way from their season 1 group. Like, it's kind of cool to see like the diversity of the group as well and how far they've come.
Yeah, there's this. They're rarely ever all together. They're always split off. So it's kind of neat to see how big the family is.
And then of course they get split off again later
Right
in this
away,
episode. But it was nice for the good chunk of this to see them together. So they meet this priest named Gabriel, and he takes them to his church. Now, Rick, of course, because Rick always like can see through people, and it's pretty much to his character that he can see if there's something off about someone. He can always see through them. And you know, and Carl, like, he says that like he wants to believe that that Gabriel's being like real, and that he's like a good guy. And you know, and Carl, he's been through so much stuff that he just wants to have like a safe place. You know, he wants to like slow down. He wants to. Because that's what they thought Terminus would be. Well, they were all wrong. I think everyone's a bit tired of running from place to place and being wrong about each place that they go to. But Rick tells Carl that even though like the church seems like a safe place, that he is not safe and he'll never be safe. So he needs to just keep his he can't put his guard down, basically. That was a pretty powerful speech between father and son. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the truth. I mean, as we just talked about that last episode, it's the truth. And unfortunately for Carl, for the whole group, that means they're always on edge, which means, you know, they're always looking for danger around them. The body is working extra hard, they're extra tired, they're extra stressed, and that's the environment. And Carl, who, you know, trusts Gabriel, a priest after all, of course you would, right?
Yeah.
Rick says, nah, there's something off.
So then they go to a food bank and they have to fight off walkers and like water. That was a different kind of sequence that we've seen. That was pretty cool. And we have Gabriel hiding away from this like female walker that attacks, and it's later on we see in a picture. He's looking at a picture of him and a woman. It looks like that was probably the walker he was hiding from.
Yeah.
From the food bank. And then Bob gets attacked by a walker, and apparently he gets bitten here, but it's not revealed till like later on. Now, I don't know why he didn't say anything, like to anyone that he got bitten. That was weird. I don't know. Like, and you think like he would immediately like, but then again, people like are able to stay alive for a while, obviously, even after they get bitten. But it was definitely weird that he didn't say anything to anyone. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I thought it was weird too, but yeah, I mean, it's Maybe he just didn't want to. I mean, maybe it was denial.
Maybe, but still,
Yeah.
I thought that was like a weird character choice. But and then Carl shows Rick writing on the side of the church that says, "You will burn for this," and that kind of ties into next episode where we get the Gabriel reveal. And then later on, like Abraham is insistent, like we need to go to Washington D.C. To find so Eugene can do the cure and everything. And in this moment, Rick agrees to go, and they're all gonna go. Like I guess the next day or whatever. And then Maggie forgives Tara for her role in Herschel's death. That was a nice moment. Maggie just has such a big heart,
Yeah,
I like
absolutely.
that. Yeah. And then we have Carol sneaking off to the car, and Daryl catches her. Now this raises the question: was she planning on leaving the group? That's kind of what it looked like. That she was just gonna flat out abandon them. And this is like Carol had such like a great moment in the first episode. And then this happened, and now I'm like a bit iffy about her again.
Well, is it possible that she was going after Beth?
And that could be true.
And that was, because that's where things go. So is it possible that she wasn't going to do this Washington, D.C. thing?
Yeah.
So anyway.
That could be true. And then it's right at that moment where Daryl sees a car pass by, and it has the same symbol of the car that took Beth. So then the two get in the car and chase after them.
Right.
That was cool how that all worked out, and how it was like the same like symbol. It's like a nice little mystery, but it also raises the question, like, what was Carol trying to do there? And then the ending is Bob getting captured by the Terminus people, and they're eating his leg that they cut off. That was
crazy, wasn't it?
Freaky.
Yep.
Like this season is really freaky. Like all 4 of these episodes have like kind of gross things about them. They're definitely taking things to another level with this season for sure. But that's kind of the episode. We went through that kind of quick, but what were some themes overall?
Well, the title Strangers represents the group's encounter with Father Gabriel Stokes. That's his last name.
Okay.
Which, new guy. And we're not really sure what he's up to. And so he's a stranger.
Yeah.
And it's the way the group is looking at everybody on the outside. Everybody's a stranger now. So they distrust everybody for obvious reasons, right? So that I think that's an important theme. Trust. Do we trust people? But then there's also, Father Abraham has some...
Not Father.
I'm sorry, Father Abraham. Sorry, Father Gabriel has some stuff, right? He's a backstory, and he has some guilt, and so that's a big thing. And then, of course, you got the cannibals eating his leg, and so there's another example of this dehumanization. They're doing what animals do, eat, and so, yeah, I think there's a lot there, and that ending of Bob and his leg was heavy, because at this point we didn't know that he was bit.
No. I mean, I guess you could theorize maybe he was. I don't know. Yeah. But this episode was pretty good overall. I would give like a 9 or a 9.5.
Yeah,
I was pretty engaged throughout.
Yeah, I'd say 9.
Yeah. So episode 3 is called 4 Walls and a Roof. And basically it starts off with Bob revealing he was bitten, and which means that they were eating tainted meat. And they're all very angry. And it's funny how Bob's just like laughing throughout.
Yeah.
Like he was just like, you idiots. Like that was pretty funny. So back at that was like a pretty shocking opening. Back at the church, the group is all freaking out. Because Bob, Daryl, and Carol are all missing, and Sasha thinks that Gabriel is responsible. And so it's this moment that Rick decides to confront him and ask, okay, what are you up to? What are you hiding? And I kind of already knew this from the comics, but it turns out that on the night of the outbreak or whatever, a lot of his church people were outside, and they were getting attacked by walkers, and they were banging on the door. And that's where the writing came from, and he didn't let them in.
Right. And that's the guilt that he's carrying around.
No, I'm not gonna lie. This was a bit weird to me, because I know like people like this apocalypse or the outbreak or whatever like weighs heavy on people in different ways, but I have a hard time like feeling compassionate for someone who didn't let people in to save them.
Mm-hmm.
I guess like to me like this was like it rubbed me the wrong way. Like I don't know what would have to go through someone's mind to like refuse to let like I don't know. What did you think of that reveal?
Well, you think that the guy, and again, character development, we talk about that a lot, so the story is that Father Gabriel is cowardice, right? He's a coward.
Yeah.
And will we see in his story growth from that?
I mean, that's
probably so. That's the starting point that we know of him, and yeah, it is shocking because you put yourself in your situation, and we would, even though we're afraid, we would help somebody, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's really hard to kind of have empathy, let alone sympathy for
that. Yeah,
for sure.
Because for most all characters, we've been able to find empathy or sympathy for them through their actions. This is the one, like, besides like flat out villains like the governor, like this is like the first like regular person that I've struggled to find that for, just because it just seems like kind of ridiculous that he would not let them in.
Well, and the symbolism so much, he's a priest, pastor. He should be, his calling is to help people,
and he did the opposite.
Exact opposite. Yeah, it's like the stories where I hear of pastors and their moral failure. It's like so hard for me to hear. So I'd imagine that's what you were feeling, like you're doing the exact opposite you're supposed to do. So yeah, I think it's I think there's supposed to be that tension in there. I don't think you're supposed to like Father Gabriel.
No, I mean,
I think the writing is such a way that you're like Rick, you just trust him. And we all know the problems that the church has today, and that reputation carries over into the apocalypse. And so I think there is a distrust of Father Gabriel.
Yeah. So the Terminus residents, they then return Bob, and everyone kind of knows that he doesn't have much time left. And then Abraham's still like, we need to go to Washington, D.C., but this time Rick refuses because Daryl and Carol are missing, and now Bob's about to die. It's just not the right time. But Glenn agrees to go with Abraham if Daryl and Carol don't return in 12 hours. And Abraham agrees to this. So later that evening, Sasha tells Tyrese to stab Bob if he turns, or like when he dies, and leaves a knife with him. And isn't Tyrese like saying that they should forgive the people who cut Bob's leg off? He said that, and Sasha's very much like, what the heck? Like, right. I went, and I do think it's like Tyrese, like, through this, like, I think that was like a bit unfair to ask Sasha to forgive them, because like that's a pretty extreme thing to do, and that's one of those cases where it's just so severe to like cut someone's leg off and eat it that like in this state of moment it was probably wrong of him to say you should forgive them.
Well, I think Tyrese,
even though it's a good thing to do in the long run, but like in this particular moment it was like, yeah, that might be asking a bit too much.
Sure. I get that. Tyrese has a simple faith, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could call him naive at times, but I think he does have a simple faith, and that could be really good. He is more trusting and more caring and wants to do the right thing, right? And he is, in a way, echoing Herschel's moral compass of the group. It's just lacks some of the empathy and sympathy of the situation of Sasha losing a guy that she loves, right?
Yeah, I agree. So Rick and the group, they leave to search for Gareth. At the same time, pretty much Gareth and the group enter the church. And they were pretty much about to attack the group, but then Rick and the group, they come in and they pretty much just kill all of the Terminus people, like without any hesitation at all. Because Rick already warned Gareth and said, like, if you would go after my people again, I would kill you. So he's not willing to give him any slack at this point. And so he kills Gareth, and then the other people like Martin and the others, they die. Gabriel's very disgusted because he says this is the Lord's house and violence should not happen in here. But Maggie says it's just 4 walls and a roof. So that's like the title.
Right.
That goes back to the title. But, this was like a pretty like disgusting sequence again. like just the flat out like killing of these people. But I kind of was expecting a bit more of like a final showdown between Rick's group and Gareth.
It was
like
just
it was a bit
brutal.
underwhelming.
Yeah,
it was brutal, but it was also one sided too.
It was just a
like there was no like war or
Right.
like fight or anything.
it was just one group killing the other group.
yeah, and kind of disgusting too, like how it all like
Yep.
some of like the fighting or the attacks that they gave. So like I was a bit disappointed by that for sure.
Yeah, and I think you're supposed to. I really do. I think that was all intentional. I mean, it's part of Rick's story,
Yeah.
the group story, but mainly Rick, because he is walking this line of good and evil, and he doesn't do a really good job at it. Here you have a group of cannibals who have no longer human in the sense that we're talking about. They've turned into an animal eating people, right? And Rick again becomes like the people he's killing. And this theme, it's like this line of good and evil runs straight through Rick and Carol, right? We've seen this back and forth, and you're rooting for them to do the right thing. And so there's this theme of what is justice and what is revenge. And Rick is no longer in this situation being just. He's violently having revenge against this group. And it's so hard to watch because what is the just thing to do? And again, I don't have the answers here.
Yeah,
but not the brutal, savage killing like that. So yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah, I agree. So then the next day, everyone says their goodbyes to Bob, and Tyrese stabs him in the head. So, I mean, and, you know, for Tyrese to have to do that, he did not want to do it, because he did it as gentle as possible, too. Like, it was barely a stab, and it was just sad.
And you know, this was a very well-written, well-done scene. It was hard to watch, of course. But again, Tyrese, I think, is the role of Herschel here. And there was so much respect of Bob in the way that he was given the opportunity to pass, and the way Tyrese handled it. I thought it was respectful, and it's what Herschel would have done, respecting humanity. While Rick's out there killing everybody and slaughtering them, becoming like the people he's killing in the sense of dehumanizing. You have Tyrese remaining here, peaceful.
Yeah, agreed. So then Abraham, Eugene, Rosita, Glenn, Maggie, and Tara, they all leave for Washington, D.C. And then Michonne and Gabriel, they talk, and Gabriel wants to know when the yelling in his mind will stop of, like, all the church people. And Michonne says it will never stop, but it will happen less often.
Yep.
And
so
then,
much guilt, so much trauma. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a nice little scene. And then Daryl returns, but he doesn't have Carol with him. Instead, he has someone else, and he tells them to come out, and then that's the cliffhanger.
Yep.
We don't know who it is. Like, by the end of episode 4, we still don't know who that is, but I do have an idea on who it could be.
And who's that?
Noah, the guy Beth was trying to escape with in episode 4, which we'll talk about in a second. It could be him, but I also think it could be Morgan.
Yeah. I didn't think of Noah, but that's a pretty neat idea there.
I think it's one of those two, unless it's a completely new character. But we'll see. So about this episode 3, what were your themes?
Well, I think we talked about all of them. I think the only thing to reiterate the title of the episode, Four Walls and a Roof, is, again, it's not a refuge or a shelter the way that you think a church should be, or yet another place to call home. It just isn't, you know.
Yeah.
So again, I think that is, the first time when I heard the phrase, it reminded me of the story of people bringing a sick person to Jesus, and they broke through the roof to do that. And I think this probably would be an example of the opposite. So, I liked it. I liked this episode. I'd say 8.5. Maybe.
It was the weakest, I would say, of this grouping, which I was not expecting it to be because of like the showdown. But it just wasn't the showdown I really wanted to see. I wanted to see more of like an equal battle instead of just one side just killing the other.
Yep.
But Bob's death was well done.
Yep.
So I'll give it like a 9.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So episode 4 is called Slab Town. So this is a Beth-centric episode, and she wakes up in Grady Memorial Hospital in Atlanta, and she meets Dr. Edwards and Officer Dawn. Pretty much the rule of the hospital is that if they save you, then you have to repay them by doing labor.
Yep.
So she becomes Dr. Edwards' nurse. And there's a lot of information here. I'm just going to run through quickly. So a new patient named Gavin's brought in, and they treat him, and Dr. Edwards is unable to save him, and then Dawn just slaps Beth, like, just randomly. Like, and she slaps her, like, multiple times in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess throughout all of this, what do you think of Dr. Edwards and Officer Dawn? Like, these two characters.
I'm still trying to get into them, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I don't think neither of them are good people.
No,
I mean,
no.
Dr. Edwards throughout seemed like a nicer guy, but then at the end it's clear that he was not.
Well, he's, in a sense, just going through the motions because I think he's afraid of going outside, right?
Yeah. And getting his job taken away from him, which...
Yeah, he seems to find some sort of purpose in that, even though Dawn is a mess, right?
No, Dawn's the worst.
Yeah, she's awful. Well, that one guy's the worst.
Gorman.
Yeah,
the worst,
but Dawn is incredibly controlling and
abusive.
Yeah, and so I think that's very authoritative. I didn't look up who the actress is. She reminds me of somebody. Just a very cold character.
Yeah, she's like the classic like cold cop that like doesn't like who takes her job like too seriously, and just an awful cop too, like for sure. And then we have this worker named Joan who's brought in, and she was bitten while trying to escape the hospital. And then her arm's amputated, and that was kind of like a gross little scene because they showed the arm getting cut off. And then she tells Beth that Dawn doesn't control her officers and lets them do what they want to the patients. So that made it sound like she was raped, or they did something to her, like sexually assaulted her. The officers did. So you can tell like she had a lot of trauma there. Joan did. And Beth meets this patient named Noah, and he's been working there for a year. And no patients have been allowed to leave the hospital, he reveals. So they pretty much are just kidnapping them and forcing them to do their labor, and then they abuse them, which is just so messed up. So the people in who are being held captive in the hospital, the only thing that they gain is like they're somewhat safe in the sense that like they're not out there getting attacked by walkers, but they're getting attacked by human beings inside, which really isn't much better.
Right.
But Dr. Edwards believes that no matter how bad things get in the hospital, it's still better than life outside.
Right. That's he's afraid to go out.
Yeah. And then, we have Officer Gorman, who he's sexually harassing Beth. And that was just uncomfortable to watch with the lollipop. So Dr. Edwards tells Beth to give Gavin a dose of clozapine. And she gives him that, and it instantly kills him. And he did that on purpose.
Well, I was going to ask you because I didn't know if she misheard him, or he instructed her to.
No, I think he instructed her to do that. I mean, he tried to make it seem like she misheard. He tried to manipulate her. Into thinking that, but no. At the end, I think he told her the wrong thing because he knew. Because he had selfish motives too, which are revealed later on. But Noah takes the blame for the death, and then Dawn tells the officers to beat him up. So it's just ruthless, but not in the sense of like the cannibals either. This is like a corrupt, like in a way a normal corrupt world, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
where the cannibals are like on another level of weird off to the side. We'll say like this is a bit closer to how Woodbury was in the sense of how they treated people. The Terminus was just a whole other level,
Yeah, because the cannibalism.
And Dawn tells Beth that she isn't strong enough for this world, but Beth says that she is. And like we don't know Dawn's backstory, but I would bet that Beth has gone through more than Dawn, because Beth's actually been out there and been in the outside world. Dawn has no idea what Beth has been through.
Right.
And then Beth and Noah, they plan to escape through the elevator shaft in the basement.
Uh-huh.
So Beth searches for Dawn's key, and Gorman catches her. He promises not to tell Dawn in exchange for sex, which is gross. And then Beth knocks him out with a lollipop jar, and then Joan, who killed herself, I guess,
Right.
we assume, just kills him. So then they escape, and then Noah's able to escape, but Beth's recaptured in the parking lot. Which I did kind of think it would be the opposite, actually, because Noah had hurt his legs, so it seemed like he would be the one behind. But Beth is able to shoot them, and then ends up being the scapegoat, taken again, which was sad. But I think Noah's going to have a bigger role. Because
I like the actor. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. And then Beth tells Dawn that no one is coming to rescue them, and then Dawn slaps Beth again in anger. So,
and then who is wheeled in?
well, the one other little thing is that Dr. Edwards tells Beth that he gave her the clozapine or whatever to kill Gavin because he was a doctor, and he was afraid that Dawn would take away his role if there was another doctor around. So he did it for selfish reasons.
I missed that. I missed all that. So, yeah, good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
He did it for selfish reasons. And Beth is very disgusted at this. And then she walks up with a pair of scissors, and I don't know if she was going to kill him or Dawn. I don't know. But then Carol gets brought in.
Mm-hmm.
That was a nice little cliffhanger.
It was.
I think it needed that because some of this episode...
disconnected.
Some of this episode was kind of boring, but I was pretty engaged through at least the second half.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think Beth's actress did a good job.
She always does.
Yeah,
I really
she's
like
good.
her.
Yeah, she's underrated, I think. But did you kind of already talk about the themes?
Well, I think
else?
no, not really. In Slabtown, this idea of a hospital, it isn't. Well, so the idea of a hospital is a place of healing,
Right.
and this is industrial. This is not a place of healing. This is a place of authoritarianism. This is you're a slave, right? And so it's the opposite. A hospital is supposed to provide hospitality and welcome, and this place does not. And so again, there's that metaphor of home, metaphor of safety, refuge, and this is not that. So I think it's an important theme, connection to the other areas. So yeah.
Yeah. This episode was a decent episode. I mean, probably similar to the last episode. Like an 8.5, I would probably give it. It was good overall.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see how it all connects. I mean, 8.5, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I do have a couple lingering questions real quick.
Okay.
The first one is, who is the person with Daryl at the end of episode 3? Morgan, Noah, someone else?
Yeah, I think that's a good question.
It's either Morgan or Noah, is my guess.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a new character. I don't think we need a new character.
Got so many.
Yeah. What happened to Carol? It's kind of hard to guess at this point what happened to her. I mean, we assume, like, she got taken and, like, while she was with Daryl sometime, but Daryl got away. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're just going to wait and see about that.
Maybe the next episode will be that story. It's hard to say.
Well, I think maybe Noah's connected somehow.
Yeah.
In that, if he does end up being the one with Daryl. And then will Abraham and his group successfully make it to Washington, D.C.? We'll see. I don't know if they're actually going to go to D.C. and if they'll film there or not. I feel like probably not. And I think Eugene's lying, so whether that gets revealed before they get there or not, I don't know. I don't see them actually making it to D.C., though. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all.
Okay.
I do think, I know they head in that direction, because I think there's some sites that they end up in Virginia, but again, it's a long time ago when I watched it.
Yeah. And then will Beth be able to escape the hospital? I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too.
I assume that the rest of the group will get involved in this plotline at some point.
Well, I'm hoping Carol and Beth escape.
I think they'll escape.
Daryl comes and rescues them, or the whole group comes and rescues, not the whole group, but half the group.
Yeah. So I hope she'll make it out of this. And now that she has Carol, she will have an ally, so that'll be good. So she's not going to be alone because now Noah's off. She escaped. So I assume we'll have Carol and Beth together, which will be good. But yeah, I enjoy these 4 episodes overall a lot. It was a great start to season 5, and I'm looking forward to watching the rest of them with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll be back in 2 weeks. Again, we don't know how many episodes it'll be. It'll just be whatever we watch in between now and the next time we record. But we'll see you in 2 weeks for our next recap. So thanks everyone for listening, and bye everyone.
See you guys.